Welcome Primary 5 with you is Miss Noor Abdurrahman, and today we are going to start lesson number 1 and 2 on concept number 1 on unit number 1. Are you ready to start? Let's go! Today we are going to talk about the systems of the earth or the spheres of the earth. What is the meaning of spheres or why we are calling the system sphere? Because the earth has the shape of a sphere. What is the meaning of sphere? Sphere means ball. Sphere means ball. So the earth has the shape of sphere. That's why we can call the systems of the earth systems or spheres. Systems or spheres. Okay, now let's know what is the four systems of the earth. Repeat after me. Geosphere, atmosphere, biosphere, and hydrosphere. Again, geosphere, atmosphere, biosphere, and hydrosphere. Okay, let's know each one of them. Geo, it's coming from ground. Geo means ground. Hydro means water. Bio means life or living organisms. And atmo means air. Let's start with geosphere. The geosphere means ground. And the ground means the earth surface or the earth crust. Earth crust means earth surface. Of course, on the earth crust, there is rocks and there is mountains and valleys and what else? So the rocks of the earth crust or earth surface, it's from geosphere. Also, under the earth's surface, there is a molten rocks. What is the molten rocks? The molten rocks, it's the magma or the lava. Do you know the lava? The lava which coming from the volcano, as we can see here. The lava, it's called a molten rocks because it was a rocks, but because of high temperature, this rocks is melted. So it's called molten rocks. So the lava which is under the earth, it's called molten rocks. And also under the earth's surface, there is a heavy metal like iron, copper, gold, and what else? So the geosphere contains the earth crust and the molten rocks under the earth crust. Again, the geosphere contains earth crust, the rocks of the earth crust, and also the molten rocks which is under the earth crust. As we can see in this picture, here we can see the molten rocks under the earth crust. And this is the layers that is under the earth crust or earth surface. Number 2, we have atmosphere. We say that atmo, it's coming from air. Atmo coming from air. So, and we talk about atmosphere on first semester. Atmosphere, it's a layer that is surrounding the earth, which made of a mixture of gases. So the atmosphere, it's a mixture of gases surrounding the earth. The atmosphere, it's a mixture of gases surrounding the earth. We can remember that the atmosphere protects the earth from the harmful radiation from the sun, like UV rays. Okay, we said that the atmosphere is a mixture of gases. What are these gases? Of course, there are a lot of gases, but we will take the main four gases in the atmosphere. Repeat after me. Nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water vapor. Again, nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water vapor. Again, the atmosphere consists of a mixture of gases, which is nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water vapor. Number 3, we have the biosphere. Bio, it's coming from, bio means life, which is coming from living organisms. That's why this system contain all living organisms on the earth. Like what? Like humans, animals, plants, and also microorganisms. If you can remember the microorganisms, they are a very small organisms like bacteria and what else that we cannot see with our naked eyes. So again, the biosphere contains the living organisms on the earth's surface like humans, animals, plants, and microorganisms. Number 4, we have the hydrosphere, and hydro is coming from water. That's why this system contains all forms of water on the earth's surface, which is fresh water or salt water. And all living organisms on the earth, which is the biosphere, interact with the earth hydrosphere. Not also the biosphere interact with hydrosphere. All the earth systems can interact together. like atmosphere can interact with biosphere, geosphere interact with hydrosphere, and what else? So all of the Earth systems can interact together. They are in interaction between each other. Okay, let's talk about some example of these interactions. When the human and animals drink water, this is interaction between wet and wet. Humans and animals, it's a biosphere, and water, it's a hydrosphere. So it's interaction between biosphere and hydrosphere. Also, there are some animals live in water like fish, and also some plants like algae. Okay, so when they are living in water, that means that this is also interaction between biosphere and hydrosphere. Hydrosphere coming from water and biosphere coming from living organisms. So guys, do the water impact the living organisms, right or wrong? Of course, the water can impact the living organisms. What's the meaning of impact? Impact means effect. Impact means effect. The water can impact the living organisms? Of course, because all living organisms need water to live, to grow, to survive, to drink. So we need the water. That's why the water can impact the living organisms. Okay, do the water impact the non-living things? Non-living things like rocks, the water can impact or affect the rocks? Yes. How can it affect it? By a two process called weathering and erosion. Repeat after me. Weathering, weathering, erosion, erosion. Let's know what is the weathering and what is the erosion. Let's start with weathering. Here in this picture we have a rock. On the rocks there is a very small pores, we cannot see it. When this rock on a river or when the rain falls on the rock, what will happen? The water will enter the rock from these pores. So the water can enter the rock from the pores, the small pores. What happened after a long time? After a long time, when the water enters the rocks start to be weak. After that, it will break down into a smaller particles because it become very weak, so it will break down into smaller particles. And this is called weathering. So weathering means breaking the rocks into smaller particles. Again, weathering means what? Breaking the rocks into smaller particles by the help of three things. Maybe water, maybe wind, and maybe also temperature. By water, as I say it, because the water of river or rain can enter the pores of rock and the rock become weak and break down into smaller particles. Number two, also the wind. When the wind passes over the rocks also after a long time start to be very weak and broke down into smaller pieces. What about temperature? How can the temperature make a weathering or breaking the rocks? Okay, these rocks on Earth's surface, there is many seasons. There is summer, where the temperature is very hot, and in winter the temperature is very cold. So hot and cold, hot and cold. After a long time from changing these temperature, the rocks start to be very weak, and also when it become weak it will break down into a smaller pieces. Guys, like the glass cup. If you take this glass cup and put it on the fridge where it's very cold, after that take it from the fridge and put some hot water inside it, what will happen? The glass cup will break down into a smaller particles. Why? Because the changing of temperature. So guys, changing the temperature can also affect the rocks, but after a long time from summer and winter. So weathering means breaking down the rocks into a smaller particles. Breaking down the rocks into a smaller particles by the effect of water, wind, temperature. Water, wind, temperature. Number two, we have erosion. Erosion. What's the meaning of erosion? Now, after weathering, the rock become a smaller particles. Okay, if some wind come or some water come, it will transport this smaller particle into another place. So when this transportation happened, this is called erosion. Erosion. So erosion means what? transportation the smaller particles of rocks to other place by water or wind. So again, let's differentiate between them. Breaking the rocks into smaller pieces, it's weathering. Transportation the smaller particles of rocks, it's erosion. So transportation or moving the smaller particles of rocks, this is erosion, and it's happened by the help of water or wind. What about weathering? Weathering, it's breaking down the rock from the beginning into a smaller pieces by the help of water, wind, and temperature. So which one has happened first? Weathering. After that, erosion. So after weathering, the erosion is happened. So now, put right or wrong. The water can impact the non-living things. It will be right. Okay guys, as we can see on this picture, the water can be found everywhere on the Earth's surface, like rivers, lakes, oceans, seas, and also under the ground. So, if we go to the space and look to the Earth, we can see it like in this picture. It looks like a blue marble. Give reason why the Earth looked like a blue marble, because a 3/4 of the Earth is covered by water. As we can see, most of Earth, or 3/4 of Earth, is covered by water. That's why the Earth looks like a blue marble. So 3/4 of Earth covered by water. Now let's talk about the water bodies on Earth's surface, which is in liquid state. It can change into solid, and also it can change into a gas. How can the liquid water change into solid? Of course, by freezing, and it will turn into ice. So by freezing in the cold weather, the liquid water will turn into ice, which is a solid state. And in hot weather, the liquid water will turn into a gas, will turn into a water vapor, which is a gas state. And how can the liquid water turn into gas? By which process? Evaporation. Evaporation. So that's the liquid turn into solid by freezing, and the liquid turn into gas by evaporation. And as we can see here on this picture, this is the water cycle, where here this is the water. When the water exposed to the sun is hot. So what will happen to the water? The sun will heat the water, and the water will evaporate. When the water evaporates, it will turn into a cloud. And when this cloud rain, the raining water will return back to the river again. And this is called a water cycle. The total amount of water on the earth doesn't change. That means that the 3/4 of the earth, or the percentage of water on the earth, doesn't change. It's a fixed. Why? Because the water, it's not finishing. It's only changing from one state into another. The water evaporates. After that, it's raining again and turn into liquid again. So the total amount of water on earth doesn't change. That's why we cannot make a new water, but we can recycle the polluted water. Now let's talk about the importance of water. Number one, from importance of water, the humans and animals can drink water to survive, and this is interaction between hydrosphere and biosphere. Number two, also the plants need water to grow. Number three, some animals and plants live in water, like what? Like fish live in water, and also like some plants like algae live in water. So the importance of water, or the uses of water, are: number one, we can use the water in preparing food, bathing, cleaning, recreation, and recreation means have fun with water, like an aqua park. Number five, traveling. Also, the water helps us to travel between different countries. And number six, manufacturing. Manufacturing means making, which is coming from making a product in the factories. It's called manufacturing. Manufacturing. So, the uses of water are preparing food, bathing, cleaning, recreation, traveling, manufacturing. What is the forms of water bodies on the earth? All the water on the earth in one form? Of course not. They are different forms. Repeat after me. oceans and seas, lakes, rivers, estuary, runoff, groundwater. Again, oceans and seas, lakes, rivers, estuary, and runoff, groundwater. Let's start with oceans and seas. Oceans and seas, they are a very large water bodies. Oceans and seas, they are not small, they are large water bodies. Okay, they contain salt water or fresh water? Of course, oceans and seas contain salt water. So they are large water bodies that contain salt water. Number two, we have lakes. The lakes are a water body that is surrounded by a land. As we can see in this picture, the water is surrounded by land. This is called lake. Okay, lakes contain, often or most of times, the lakes contain fresh water. But sometimes the lakes contain salt water. So most of times the lakes have fresh water, but sometimes it has salt water. So what is the lakes? The lakes are water bodies that surrounded by land, and most of times it contains fresh water, but sometimes contain salt water. Number three, we have river. The river, it's a water body that flow or move. So the river always moving and always flowing. Okay, it's flowing from high place to low place or from low place to high place. Of course, the water will move from high place to a low place. Why? Because the water is not flying. So the water moving from high place to low place. And this is called high altitude. High altitude means high place, and low altitude means lower place. So altitude means place. So what is the river? It's a water body that flow from high altitude to low altitude. Again, what is the river? It's a water body that flow from high altitude to low altitude in a definite channel. Okay, what about the type of water on rivers? Of course, the rivers always contain a fresh water. Number four, estuary. Estuary. What is the estuary? Okay, guys. The river, most of the times, it's ending on sea. The river water ending on sea. Okay, when the river end on the sea or put its water on the sea, the river contain a fresh water and the sea contain salt water. So what is the estuary? Estuary, it's the place or it is the water body when the fresh water of river meets the salt water of the sea or ocean. So the estuaries contain what? Contain salt water and also a fresh water. Okay, Miss Noura, do the fresh water of river mix with the salt water of sea? No, subhanallah, both of the types of water when the river meet the sea, they are not mixed together. They don't mix together. The fresh water is still fresh and the salt water is still salt. Like we can see in this picture, and this is the estuary. Subhanallah, this is in Al-Quran Al-Kareem. بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان. That means the both types of water are not mixed together. لا يبغيان means that they are not mixed together, and this is called estuary. It's called what? Estuary. So the estuary, it's a water body when the fresh water meet the salt water, and it contains mix of them, salt water and also a fresh water. Number five, we have runoff. Runoff. What is the runoff? Runoff, it's a water body. It's formed when the rainwater falling on the ground and also when the snow melt and fall on the ground. So it's a water body that contain a water from rain or a water of melting the snow. It will move into the river or it will move into the ground. So the water body that contain the rainwater or the melting of the snow water, it's called what? Runoff. Again, it's called what? Runoff. Number six, we have the groundwater. The groundwater, it is the water that lies under the earth's surface. The water that is under the earth's surface or beneath the earth's surface, it's called groundwater. Like we can see here in this picture, it's called what? Groundwater. Now let's talk about the water cycle. The water is from hydrosphere, and as we said that the water is not finishing, so that's why the water is from renewable resources of energy. We talked in primary 4 that the water is a source of energy, so it's renewable or not renewable? It is renewable. Why? Because it doesn't finish. The water can be renewed again. When we use the water can be renewed again, so the water amount on the earth doesn't change. Give reason. The water is a renewable resource of energy. Why? Because the water has a water cycle. Because the water has a water cycle. What is the water cycle? In the water cycle, the water bodies like rivers or sea, the water when it's exposed to the sun, it's evaporate, forming clouds. After that, this clouds will return the water back to the earth's surface by raining. By what? By raining. So that means that the water is not finishing, and the water is a renewable resource of energy because it has a water cycle. Um, Now let's talk about the plants in the biosphere. The plants can grow from a very small seed into a huge trees and also into a new plants. The plants to grow, it need water. So the plants can be affected if the water is polluted or if the water amount decrease. So the hydrosphere all the time interact with biosphere because all living organisms like plants, animals, humans in the biosphere depend on the hydrosphere to survive. With you was Ms. Noor Abdurrahman, and thank you for listening.